Hi guys, we are back with another live video. You know, I have to say that doing it live is my favorite way to do it because you know, whatever happens, happens and you know that it's live. But today we've got to be talking about something that's really important because we're really talking about an unlimited amount of this versus a finite amount of this. And there really is, we have hit peak gold. And this matters, I'm going to tell you why, because we do know that central banks have been buying more gold than they ever have in history. They understand that they are destroying it by no limitations to how much money they can print. You know, with central banks buying the debt of the government, there really are no limitations on how much new money can be printed, and that is one of the key tools for them. But when you look at the headlines, because people will say, oh, well, gold is down or gold isn't doing anything, blah, 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 and silver as well. What you're looking at is Wall Street's contract. So here, gold and copper gain as US CPI bolsters bets on Fed rate cuts. Why does that matter? Why does that impact the market price of those spot contracts? Because gold does not pay you a yield. It doesn't have to. It's the safest thing. And I should say, here's a disclaimer because I told you whenever I would do it. Now you have to understand, this is a Zang Enterprise ounce of gold that I purchased. This is a new American Eagle. I got it because sometimes I talk about bullion, but you can see that I have one of these compared to, well, it's just a little bit of what I hold. So fair disclaimer, this is actually an American Eagle, not something that you're likely to see me to buy personally. And I only did it because if I talk about it, I gotta have it. So that's why I have that. But getting back to this, you know, people think that the Fed or any of the central banks are godlike creatures, but they are not. They are humans. And the markets hang on what they're going to do, right? So if the Fed lowers interest rates, that is about borrowing, encouraging borrowing and spending to stimulate the economy based upon debt. Gold and silver are sound money, and there is a finite amount of it. And we've hit peak gold, but let me stay with bullion for a minute because it's up 13% this year, supported by expectations the Fed will cut rates in 2024. And they very well could cut those rates. But does that make gold more or less attractive? If they cut the rates, it's to do more of this, to create more of this and more debt. And every time they do that, the value of this stuff that's already out there goes down, right? Whereas with gold and silver, there's a finite amount. And the haven demand, what's a haven demand? That's a safe haven demand, right? So central banks are buying gold because they know they are creating the next crisis and they are trying to manage this. That's perception management. But demand and haven demand will continue, not just by central banks, but also consumers, and not just in China, but everywhere in the world, including the US, with the public now buying. So why is that a problem? Well, because the reality is, and I've shown you this many times, in the paper markets, they can create as much gold and silver that does not nor ever will exist. But the markets read it as if it's there. Whereas in the physical world, you've got to have supply. And it's getting harder and harder to find. Now, what I'm talking about is gold in this video, but the reality is similar to the same for silver. It's getting harder to find, and silver is actually a byproduct of copper and gold mining. But miners struggle to excavate more. Well, why does that matter? Well, so far around 187,000 metric tons of gold has been mined to date. So we're talking about thousands of years. This fits into an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's it. People will also say there's not enough gold to back a currency. Sure there is. There's plenty of gold to back a currency. It maintains its value because there's a finite amount of it. The thing that needs to change is how much of this stuff it takes to buy 1 ounce of, I'm going to ruin my pile, this stuff. You make it high enough, it can cover as much paper as they need to. And the reason where you saw my hesitancy in that is because, again, I wish it happened. There's an unlimited amount of this, but there is a limited amount of this. And as soon as you put gold to back any currency, it creates restrictions around how much of this central bankers can create. And they don't like that. But gold reserves that can be excavated are estimated at around 57,000 tons. That's it. Now, every year, the United States Geology does a survey on how much gold is yet in the ground. That's called in-ground gold. So there's above ground gold, which is this that I can hold in my hand, and then how much is left? Only 57,000 tons left? There's a very finite amount. And we have to understand that it is used in every single sector of the global economy. So it has the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of buyer. That's what you want in a financial asset. You want lots of people that want to accumulate it. But if they can keep creating it out of thin air, how much, and so easily, how much value does it really have? That's why this stuff loses value. But in 2023, mine production fell just short of the 2018 record. That was the record, 2018. So we have hit, most likely, we have hit peak gold. That means that they have more gold in the ground, right, at the peak. Now there's less there, therefore it's less to mine, and they're finding a lot less of it. So here we go. The bigger picture, I think, about mine production is that effectively it plateaued around 2016 to 18, and we've seen no growth since then. Okay, that matters. You want to own a piece of it. This is one of the reasons, well, besides the fact that central banks totally know what they're doing to this stuff, they need to accumulate gold because they know that there's a finite amount and it's not going to go to zero, whereas the other stuff always goes to zero. Not only that, but not only is it harder to find, but it is more expensive to mine. So inflation also means that the cost of mining goes up, just like your cost of living. So that puts a floor underneath the price, and as the demand expands and hits every single sector of the global economy, you have to pay more for it. I mean, it really is that simple. And I've shown you many times the difference between the contract, the spot price of gold, and what happens in the physical only markets. This is huge. But they do have a growing buyer base, and the central banks have totally been a big part of that. And I know you've seen this graph. I want to hammer it home because who knows more about what they are doing to the money that you and I work for and use as our tool of barter? And heaven forbid, I don't try and save money in that. I save my wealth in this, right? Because it's key to holding your purchasing power. Same reason as the central banks do it. And we can certainly see the last couple of years, what are they getting ready for? This is an indication of what they are getting ready for, don't you think? Because we know that the first quarter of 2024, which is not reflected on this graph, central banks have bought the most gold in the first quarter as a comparison than they ever have in history. What does that tell you? It tells you ever so much. It tells you, even if you don't understand all of the gobbledygook, what this tells you is they're preparing for a major financial crisis. And they are buying gold in order to maintain their freedom, to maintain their autonomy, and to have purchasing power to transition into the new currency. Exactly the same reasons why you should. Now, I'm going to take the strategy that I developed since 1987 based upon those repeatable patterns. Because we've talked, there's gold, here's another form, right? Bullion, and then there's gold. So in the strategy, I've taken a look over time at what happens to the different quality levels. Now remember, this is the brand new Eagle. This was minted in 1903, okay? There's exactly the same content weight of gold in both of these. So that has nothing to do with quality, but it does have to do with functionality. This gold performs a different function than this kind of gold. And depending upon the quality level in here, it performs another function as well. So, look, I have hung a picture with the back of my shoe, using the shoe as a hammer to get the nail in the wall. But when I do it with a hammer, it actually works a lot better. So in the strategy, we have it broken down based upon your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. And we have everything color-coded. And we have all of these. We just got these in. I'm so excited about it. I wanted to show it to you. We have all of these different colored stickers so that you can put them on these special boxes that we have ordered that aren't in yet, but when they come in, I'll let you see them. So at a glance, you can look at this and know what its function is. You don't have to go, oh, well, this is that, and I don't know what this is worth or that is worth or what it's for. It's complicated, right? But the booklet that you get when you're working with us on the strategy will show you everything, and it's all color-coded where it goes, where it fits, where it accomplishes your goals that you laid out. That has to be first. Your goals have to be absolutely first. But we are making it easy for you to know how you use these things, where you use these things. And you watch me, and as I execute my strategy, you just do what I'm doing for myself. If you ask somebody, well, if you were me, what would you do? They can say anything. But if they're a person of integrity, what they'll say is, because this is what I typically say, and integrity is not convenient, right? There's no such thing as convenient integrity. Just like freedom is not free. We have to do things for our integrity, and we have to do things for our freedom. And to me, that's like the highest level of commitment. So everything will be color-coded on stickers, made obvious for how you use this, and then you watch these videos, and I will show you and I will tell you what I am doing for myself, and therefore the choice is all yours. But it makes the most sense to do what the smartest guys in the room on any given topic are doing for themselves. And I don't know too many people that have studied this stuff for as long as I have. Doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of very smart people out there, but quite honestly, I don't talk to really very many people that truly, truly, truly understand that what we're dealing with here is a currency life cycle issue. And what happens during these transitions is visible. These are repeatable patterns. So I'm going to help you understand. We are at Zang Enterprises. We are going to help you understand the different functions that both gold and silver can perform. And whenever you buy it, so you convert this fiat garbage into sound money, well, how do you know what the function is? How do you know what you're supposed to do with this? We're going to make it as easy for you as possible. It is critically important. I'm so excited that we finally have, there are 7 different classifications for gold and silver. So you got 7 different, very distinct colors, and each sticker has the function on there as well. So we define it for you all the way through. We don't want you to have to wonder. We don't want you to have to question. We want to make it easy for you. And as we move forward, as you've seen, I'm going to reveal more and more of the strategy for you. And I know that some people might be a little nervous about that because, my goodness, I'm giving this away. The reality is every single person on the planet needs to have a strategy, a sound money strategy to transition into the new system with. And I think you'll hear it on the next one. I recently joined Citizens for Sound Money. So stay tuned. I'm going to have people on, and I promised you that I would do this. It's part of the work that I'm doing for you guys, that I would get more deeply involved in states legalizing gold and silver as legal tender. It's critically important if we're going to have a seat at the table at the new iteration of money. And we need to, because if we don't, what they have in mind for us takes us all the way back to feudal times, where you just have a few entities that own everything, everybody else that rents, and you're a slave. I don't want you to be a slave. I want you to have your freedom. Let's take our system back. We can do that locally. You gotta have a community so that you can cover all those important bases to sustain a standard of living. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Globally, you convert this garbage fiat money that loses value constantly by design into sound money that holds your purchasing power intact. We can create this very peaceful and quiet and lovely revolution, and potentially, this is what I'm working for. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm going to give it my best shot, so that we have a seat at the table in the new iteration of money. And we've got to do this for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, for not just us. How long are we going to be here? But we've got to do it for future generations. It's critically important. And now I will take questions. So Dana Crisan asks, and if I butcher anybody's name, please forgive me. Please let us know when you're coming to Australia and if you will be doing any meet and greets. We appreciate you. Yes, I will be coming to Australia in November. Stay tuned. I will be doing meet and greets while I'm there. Stay tuned. We're going to have a sheet put up on our website that'll let you know specifically the dates. But I can tell you this, it is in November, and it's with Daryl and Brian, and I'm very excited to be doing that. So, Andrea, and by the way, just a little bit more aside from that, I'm hoping to bring my 2 daughters with me. Megan came with me the last time, but I'm hoping to bring Whitney as well, because I want her to experience your wonderful country. Every country has different issues, but the people, I love you guys so much. You have no idea. I'm so excited to be able to come back. Okay, and Andrea Van de Kloot asks, will community buy my fresh eggs with what? Silver? Oh, LOL. So she thinks it's funny. How will we know what 1 silver dime is worth? It is too much for 1 or 4 eggs. Well, first of all, when you're looking at a barter community and it gets real local, then, anything is worth what anybody's willing to barter it for. There are always scales around to determine the weight. There will always be a spot market to determine that. But inside of community where you know and have trust, and remember, my good friend George Gammon went to South America and he brought silver, gold, and Bitcoin. Bitcoin, forget it. They didn't want that at all. Gold, according to the spot market, he got 50% for. Silver actually performed the best in the day-to-day barterability, but he did the absolute best when he was using this in a community that knew who he was, right? Because how do you know if it's real? And I'm going to be doing a video on that as well, and a magnet is a great way to do that. But it seems funny, yet look at what happened just in 2014, 2015 in Europe with their sovereign debt crisis, and people reverted right back to using silver and gold for barterability. But most people have more silver than they do gold because obviously there's a huge price differential. Again, going to these stickers so you know how to use them. You know, your eggs will stay, if they're fresh eggs and you don't wash them off, you know, you can hold them on the counter for 3 months. You can even put them back in a solution, which I think Jason has done a video on, and we can pull it and he can do another one if you want to know. So you can actually hold them for about 6 months, but they have a shelf life. Silver, gold, there's no shelf life. What's the date on this? The date on this is 1895, and look, it's still perfectly good, right? The date on this is looks like 52, and look, it's still good. So silver and gold became, and particularly a tool of barter and sound money, because it does not have a shelf life, right? You need a money that is not going to go bad. So yes, and by the way, let's say you have those eggs, but I don't need those eggs, right? I have blueberries. You don't want my blueberries, so you're not going to trade me blueberries for eggs because neither one of us really want that. With silver, it's universal. So it doesn't matter whether or not, you know, if I want your bread or your eggs, I'm going to use silver to do it because then you can take that silver anywhere that you want to. We've also seen the same level of barterability quite a bit in South America. So just because you haven't personally experienced it, today we're seeing this barterability in silver particularly and gold. Okay, Goldens and Coons. Is the US dollar index just comparing paper currencies that are losing purchasing power to other losing paper currencies? Yes. Good job, Goldens and Coons. You got it. Spot on. It's irrelevant unless you're going to travel overseas, in which case you're going to convert dollars into whatever other currency that is. And Canadians have particularly felt that impact between the US dollar back and forth across the border. But yes, that's relative to other paper currencies that all of them are being inflated away. It's much better to value it against real money, right? That doesn't get inflated away. And Rich Liberation asks, what type of gold would you recommend we buy? Depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? There are basically several things that we can accomplish with gold. Number one, we can sustain our standard of living. So these like raw coins that you see here, which I personally prefer the pre-33s because there is a finite amount of them and you can't go back and make it, and these were used to be in circulation. So for my barterable position, let's say I don't, and I hope nobody else does, but I'll use this as an example. Let's say I have a chronic illness, right? Which is not a good thing, but you got to fund it. You have to be able to buy your medicines. You have to be able to go and get whatever services you need. I like the raw for that, or even the foreign gold coins, which I think I have a Swiss franc here somewhere. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. For your barterable gold, it's for anything that would be like a chronic illness or property taxes or things like that, right? Now, let's say that you have a whole bunch of, you've got a 401k and you have no access to that 401k. And what's in that 401k? Stocks and bonds. And you can't touch it, or you can only touch a small portion of it. And you want to protect that wealth, right? So you want to diversify your portfolio. Then I'm going to go with a lower quality, higher population of something like this. It's all laid out in your strategy, and then everything is color coded so that at a glance, you know what that is. But let's say I want to hold something for a legacy, right? This happens to be important to me, that I leave a legacy for my children. So I'm going to go to the more rare coins, the most rare ones that I can afford, right? And I'm going to go as up in quality, so mint state, fewer blemishes, as I can afford. So there's not one thing. What you want to do first is define your goals. What is it that I am trying to accomplish? I want to sustain my standard of living. I want to protect what I've accumulated so far. I want to get out of debt. I want to grow my portfolio with income producing assets. Every single one, or I want to leave a legacy. All of those, I've got 7 different categories of gold and silver that will accomplish all those different things. So if you're talking to one of our strategy specialists, what you're doing is you are defining your goals first. Now let's say that you don't really want to execute the strategy at all, because not everybody wants to do it. That's okay too. We're still going to help you understand the use of what you're buying, what its functionality is. And we're still going to give you all the information and keep you in the loop and do whatever we can to be of service. And
can we piggyback off that real quickly?
Sure.
Do you prefer, there was a question by Woody Slowski, do you prefer gold coins over gold bars?
Yes, 100%. And it's not just coins, because there are coins. This is a new American Eagle, right? And then there are coins. This is a pre-33. Look at the two of them. Same exact gold content, weight. But if they do an overt confiscation, which I can't guarantee, right? Are they going to do it or are they not going to do it? History tells us that they are likely to do it. And the rest is, in my opinion, hopium. So when I'm looking at bars, that is strictly bullion. That is what's going to be taken first. And honestly, just see what you can hold inside of an IRA. What does the IRS say that you can hold inside of an IRA? That is the kind of gold I do not buy, because it's so easy. That's where most people hold their gold. And it is so easy to go in and just take it away and leave a whole bunch of these that they then destroy. They did it in 33. And by manipulating the price, right, that you see, and whether or not you're encouraged to buy gold or silver, right, that is a form of confiscation. That manipulation, absolutely. So for me, I like to say, what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? If you buy bullion, you better be right. Because I'm not saying that there won't be uses for it. There'll be a black market. But as George Gammon discovered, you're not going to get full value when you're working in a black market, right? Whereas if you have the kind of gold that my Uncle Al had, which is this, then even when it was confiscated, he had at least 3,000 ounces of gold, when it was illegal to hold more than 5 in any other form than the way that he was holding it. And he could use it in the normal marketplace, which is another big key. Because I've had so many people say, well, they're going to have to get it out over my dead body. It's not worth it. There's not a big enough price differential, and it is so severely undervalued simply because a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. So if I can buy this super undervalued, rock and roll hoochie coo all day long. And I can get this stuff way below its true fundamental value too. Rock and roll all day long. That way it doesn't matter. I can be wrong. I can be right. It doesn't matter. That's the way I like to operate. And Silver Beast asks, What will the next world reserve currency be? Well, in my personal opinion, and also watching the International Monetary Fund build a universal currency, I believe, and I've been saying this since 2009, quite honestly, that it is going to be the SDR, the special drawing rights, which is the currency, the fiat currency created by the International Monetary Fund that houses every Treasury Secretary and every central bank chief, almost, right? They have 189 members and there are 196 countries in the world. So almost every single one. And it is a basket of currencies without limitations. So while right now there's 6 currencies in that basket, they can expand that basket to include every single currency on the planet. And therefore, you can work with one universal currency, and then they can translate that easily into a local currency. So the dollar, the euro, the yen. And in that way, the individual public thinks that nothing has changed, even when everything has changed. They know how to do this. They told us nothing would change in 1971. Boy, were they lying. Everything had changed. And I was there for that, and I remember what that was like. So, S. Taylor asks, is it possible to run out of pre-33 gold? Absolutely, because there's a finite amount of them. And remember, back in 33, after the confiscation, they melted a lot of this down. So there's even less of them. So yes, it is definitely possible. That's also what we're seeing in, and I don't have that graph today, but I show it all the time in the ultra rarities, right, that are making new highs. That is a physical only market. So if you've got people that want something and there's a finite amount of it, whoever's willing to pay the most for it is going to walk away with it. But then you have all of that demand left. So yes, it is possible to run out of pre-33 gold coins. And that is actually, when you look at the charts, part of that is what drives the price. That's why I said, if I'm looking to build a legacy, I'm going to buy the most rare coin that I possibly can. It's like owning a Van Gogh, right? There's so many Van Goghs in the world. That's it. There's a finite number of them. Why have they done so well? Because it's fine, it's great quality, and there's a limited number. So yes, it is possible to run out of them.
And just to kind of clarify that, the pre-33 are all collectibles, or is it just the slabbed coins that are considered collectibles? Can you kind of help me clarify that?
Yes, and that is really open to debate. When you look at the documents, it actually says any coin minted prior to 1933 is classified as rare and collectible, right? However, something like this, which is it's a 1 ounce gold coin pre-33, it does move along with spot because, there are blemishes on it. So there are more of these than this. And this is definitely also classified as a collectible. And that's why I go back to looking at what the IRS says you can hold inside of your... So the IRS has actually classified all of this as a collectible. Actually, because I can't hold this in my IRA. Why not? It's the same weight and content, and at this point, it does follow the spot market. Okay? And I like when you do that, so keep doing that. Help me clarify, because I really want everybody to get this and understand it. And Billy Goat asks, do you know a broker I can use to buy the silver derivative and stand for delivery? Thanks. Well, you could actually do that at any brokerage house, and gosh, Bank of America has Merrill Lynch, and you can stand for delivery, and those contracts, and they have mini contracts, so it depends on the size of the contract. But yeah, you can do that, and you can stand for delivery. You just have to be able to pay the 5,000 ounces or what have you. Yeah, you can do that, and any of them. And David Pickles asks, I have been stacking for about 3 years. Good. I do wonder when the reset happens, who could afford to buy my silver or gold? That's a great question, David. And what you need to understand is as we're going through this reset, that's when people, the problem with quick inflation is that people start to recognize how rapidly this is losing value, right? Who's going to want your silver and gold? Well, let's look at Zimbabwe, right? It's just the elites, those people that actually have something, and they're converting into gold right now. But even then, people with money always want what nobody else can have. They're the elites. And because gold and silver are used in every single sector of the global economy, they need to continue to buy those gold particularly and silver, because they have tried and tried and tried, and they have never been able to come up with any other formulas that have the same characteristics as gold or as silver. So it is certainly the elites that will be stacking, but it's also in the financial sector, in the jewelry sector, in the food, in aerospace, in solar, in engineering, on and on and on and on and on. The broadest base of buyer, and they have not been able to replace it with anything else. And oops.
Can you clarify that? So when you say broadest base of buyer,
that means in the financial sector, in the food sector, in the jewelry sector, in engineering, in aerospace, in solar, so manufacturing, medical, as well as financial, art, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean by the broadest base of buyer. Lots of entities use gold, lots of entities use silver, and they haven't come up with a good substitute for them. So that's what I mean. That's also what I mean by the broadest base of functionality. Right? Where is this stuff used? I mean, here's some examples of where silver is also used, right? Silverware, chopsticks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Jewelry, right? It's used all over the place. Whereas this stuff is used in one place, the financial sector. That's it. What do you want when you're going into a fight? Do you want a little jackknife, or do you want a bazooka? Bazooka. Okay. And Ralph Hart asked, why doesn't the USCB not buy gold like all the others are doing? Well, do you absolutely positively, without any doubt whatsoever, know that somebody is not buying, or some entity, is central bank or whatever, is not buying it? Because if you think that they are being absolutely honest with you, there is this bridge in Brooklyn that I'd love to discuss with you, right? Do you believe them? I really credit my father, and every time I say this, it makes him sound less than, but to me, he was the greatest man in the world. And he always used to say to me, do what I say and not what I do. And I used to say, Daddy, that does not make sense to me. And that was kind of like our little jokey banter. And he was talking to me mostly about driving, but it really stuck with me. So I listen to what these central bankers say, and then I watch what they do. And when their words do not support their actions, I know it's a lie. They don't want you to buy gold at the same time that they're buying gold hand over fist. That we know of. But let's see, shall I call the Fed and say, hey, can I audit the gold that you say we have? I don't get to audit it. It's never been audited. Yeah, they went and said, oh, look, there's a gold bar. But there are so many different contracts for leasing and for this and for that. Who in the world really knows? So, you know, and you look at Canada that presumably sold all of their gold. what that means is whoever is not really holding gold at the end of everything being washed out in this reset, everybody's going to know it. It's going to be globally obvious and known, and it's going to make a huge difference in their power position in the world. So, okay, M. Baker asks, how many ounces of silver is a reasonable amount to hold? The number of ounces is based upon your current cost of living and the different parts of your cost of living. So we break it down, and you might need to put gas in the tank, or you might need to buy those eggs that we were talking about before, or some kind of day-to-day. So what we like to do is figure out what that looks like. And then we know what the fundamental value of silver is, then we can determine how many ounces of silver. And I like it, these are the pre-64, all the different sizes, right? So here's a dime. So I like the variety of sizes, but that's how you know how much silver do I need? How much gold do I need? So you go back to what are you trying to accomplish? That's what our strategy specialists are groomed to do, and they work directly with me. So you are getting a sound money portfolio based upon your particular goals, needs, circumstances, what you have to work with. And we're here through this trend and more and more. And freedom for all, I agree with that 100%. Can you talk about the importance of your local farmer? Food security, as grocery stores will not be able to feed people soon. And you're absolutely correct about that. Food becomes the single biggest issue for people as we go through these transitions, and that should be really obvious. And for new farmers to come into being with the price of the land and the cost of production, we really are struggling, and people don't realize it, but just think a few years ago in 2020 when you couldn't get toilet paper, you couldn't get the stuff at the grocery store. And so they said it was all about the supply chain and all of that, but go into your grocery store right now, and if they have a whole row of what you're looking for, take one down. There's nothing behind it. So for me personally, in 2008, there was absolutely zero doubt in my mind that the system had died. And that's when I was living in a little 2-bedroom condo that I was getting ready to retire, that I could just lock the door and off I go. Boom, nothing to worry about. Well, when I saw 2008 happen, I bought this property, and I'm in dead central Phoenix because of my children, right? I mean, I'm not leaving them. And I was not a gardener by nature, not a farmer by nature, but I knew 100% since I'd studied currency life cycles that food becomes the biggest issue. And so I converted this into an urban farm. And if I needed to, because I thought it was so smart in 2020, yeah, okay, I didn't have avocados, but big deal. I had eggs, I had chicken, I had fish, I had crawfish, I had fruit, I had vegetables. I had enough for myself. I had enough to share, not just with my family, but with others as well. And I'm walking around going, oh, aren't I smart? Look at this. And then there were riots at the Capitol building, which is not too far from where I live, and up in Scottsdale at Fashion Square, which is near my children. And I thought, oh, there's the hole. And I got a bug out location. And you'll see, I haven't given these clips. I was just up there last weekend showing you the progress of the orchards that we planted a year ago. But I'm preparing enough food for 40 people. So we need to go local, because in this crisis, it gets local really quickly. And that's why local community is critical to create that food security, water, energy, etc. How do you do that, right? Because I get that asked a lot. It is get to know your local growers. Go to the farmers markets. Meet these people. How about volunteering some of your labor for a day? You can say, well, I don't know how to lay irrigation. I don't know how to do anything. I guarantee you the farmer is most likely to know where that person, where he or she needs the most help, right? Get to know them, because that's how you can ensure you don't have the luxury of time that I've had over these last 14 years or so, building up my personal position of those mantras. I mean, the mantra came about because that's what I was doing and am doing for myself, right? So it is critically important that you get to know your local farmer and you volunteer whatever you can do. Maybe you're going to learn some new skills. But when push comes to shove and you need food, and here's a person that hasn't done anything for this other person and he does not know or she does not know, and here's somebody that has volunteered that have a relationship with, guess who's going to get the food? It's not rocket science. It's developing that local community. And it's not just food, but food becomes the single biggest issue. It's critically important that you grow this community locally. And knowing your local growers ensures, or it doesn't guarantee anything, but you got a much better shot at being able to continue to feed your family. It's critically important. Thank you for that question. I'm going to be really honest with you. You haven't seen a lot on this channel because we're building this channel, right? And according to Adam, who is a genius in this area, every time I put one of the other mantra pieces out, it kills our algorithm. And it just kind of, we're not able to build the channel at the same rate. And that's why at this moment you're not seeing it. But make no mistake about how important that is, and the fact that once we get to what level did you say? And we could do that then?
250.
About 250,000 subs. So help us get there. Yep. Share. Make sure you subscribe. Once we hit 250,000 subs, he says we can do anything we want. And I think we're also working on where else we can start to put this material, because it's that critically important. So don't think that it's lost importance to me because I'm unable to put it on this channel. It's frustrating to me, frankly, because you can't eat gold or silver, though you can barter for food with it. You can barter with eggs. I mean, I did build my foundation in gold and silver first, but honestly, food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community and shelter, get it all done, especially that local community, so that you can ensure that you can continue to feed your family, continue to get them water, energy. I mean, there is power in coming together in a community. Do we have more questions? Okay, and Mr. House asks, what makes you think that they won't classify collectibles as, he didn't put the quotes out around it, classify collectibles as bullion? These are great questions today. It seems to me they changed the rules to suit themselves. 100%. And of course, I can't guarantee anything, but this is why I don't think they're going to do it. Number one, there's less than 2% of the total gold market in this stuff. Less than 2%, okay? So it's very, very small. And what they'll do is they will use the eminent domain laws to justify or legalize taking them from you. There's a whole lot more of this stuff out there, and this is easy pickings. It's in the IRAs. It's easy enough to do a sweep. But this is the real reason. And it's the same reason that Uncle Al held it, to be honest with you. In 33, when they confiscated gold, the Treasury Secretary Wooden at that time wrote in that caveat, the pre-1933 is classified as rare and collectible. But he left it open enough for interpretation so that him understanding the laws, he and his cronies, his friends, could continue to accumulate. Today, if they were to do a confiscation, they use the spot market to manipulate your perception on gold all the time. So let's just say it's at $3,000 an ounce. They don't want pushback from you. So what if they say, well, we're going to take all the gold in the IRAs, but we're going to leave you $4,000. Most people believing Wall Street lies go, well, wow, gold is only worth $3,000 and they're willing to pay me $4,000. Okay, which is exactly what they did in 33. And then they did an overnight revaluation from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce, right? But let's say you have a coin that goes for 5 million or 15 million bucks for 1 ounce of gold, which in the ultra rarities, where the 1%ers play, where the elites play, that happens, I mean, there's not a bazillion of them. They're very, very, very rare. But do you think that somebody that paid 200, whatever, $200,000, $15 million for one of these is going to turn it in for $4,000? I don't think so. Plus, anybody that can afford $15 million for 1 ounce of gold is very likely to either be who writes the laws, like Treasury Secretary Wooden, or has influence over those that write the laws, like we see all the time. So those eminent domain laws give me a lot of understanding on how they would confiscate this next time, because the laws are still on the books. They can choose to execute those laws or not, but I want to be in the category of the $15 million 1 ounce gold coin. And I don't have to spend that in order to be in that category. I just need to understand how to do it. Let's see. So Ralph Hart, why has there not been a good question? Gee, do you think maybe, or I'll read the whole question because I just kind of got caught up on that. But why has there not been an audit? Thanks for your insight on the U.S. buying silver, not really saying they are. I mean, there hasn't been an audit on there because they don't want you to understand what they have. They just want you to blindly believe and follow. Because remember, gold used to back the currency. That's the argument that a lot of bullion dealers use. Well, gold doesn't back the currency anymore. You start reading between the lines and you see what's happening in other places to gold miners being forced to give up 20% of their production in the local currency. You see the confiscation happening all the time. And what gold is, it's a confidence builder. So whether we go all the way back to 33 with Roosevelt's fireside chat, and you can trust the new currency because it is backed by good money gold, right? They're telling you gold backs a currency. It is critically important, and we're watching this in Zimbabwe right now, right? They are trying to regain the confidence of the public because this stuff, it's a con game. And that requires confidence. And that confidence, when inflation happens rapidly, the public loses confidence. And that's the last level of confidence that they're trying to retain. And let's see, Rich Liberation. How do you safely and securely hold your gold and silver? This is also great questions today.
I know, and then Billy Goat kind of is looking at moving his money to different countries possibly. Can you tell him, if you know anything about the holding of gold in other countries and other vaults?
Well,
two-part question.
Okay, so we'll do that one. And Billy Goat, do you know about other countries' laws on this? Okay, number one, Rich, we have a list of ideas of where to hold it. I think you should be diversified in that as well. So, for example, you're going to want it close enough for you to access. That is critically important anyway. But if you have barterable gold and barterable silver, okay, so cash is your first line of defense, and then your barterable gold and barterable silver is your second line of defense. So you want that easy to access. And you have to be creative. Remember, most people don't own gold or silver anymore. So there are a lot of, I call them hidey holes, but places where you live that you can probably put them that will not be obvious. A great example is I had a client that had a fireplace that she never used. And so easy for her to reach, but up in that flue, she had a couple of bricks removed and she puts her gold in there. When I had a condo, I had this peninsula on my kitchen. And so I had a bookshelf built around there, and I had a false bookshelf built because there was a whole bunch of dead space between my oven and the exterior of that peninsula. So I could pull that out and I held it there. Anybody coming in and looking would have absolutely no idea that it just wasn't a bookshelf, because they're not coming in with metal detectors and things like that. They're not going to think about that. So we have a one sheet on ideas of where to safely hold it. And then Billy Goat, what do I think, because this will go into the other one, what do I think about vaulting gold in different global jurisdictions? I'm looking to move to Philippines and was thinking about Singapore. Well, you know, if you're thinking about going there, yes, it actually makes a level of sense to have some of your gold holdings wherever it is you're going to be, so that you have access when you need it if you have to leave quickly. If you are not going to be there and you need it, it is very hard, if not virtually impossible, to have that gold sent back to you when you need it. I don't necessarily at this point anyway know all the rules and laws around that. But yes, Billy Goat, if you're planning on moving someplace to Singapore, it would make sense to go to a private vault and have some of your holdings there along with some cash, so that when you get there, you've got at least your first and second lines of defense. But if you're not planning on going there, why hold it there? Because it's almost impossible, or it would take a very, very long time to get it back. I hold obviously because of what I do, I have to be conscious. The lion's share of what I hold is in a private vault that I can walk to if I needed to get to it. Let's see. Last question. Mr. J905 asks, what ratio of gold and silver is best to hold? You know, if you're referring to the gold-silver ratio, to be honest with you, I don't really pay a tremendous amount of attention to that, because what I'm actually doing is executing a strategy. So I hold enough silver in my barterable position for my daily needs and my children's daily needs for 10 years. So we figure out what that is, and then that tells you. My gold-silver ratio, I am far, far, far more weighted in gold than I am in silver, because I am executing a strategy. And what I want to do is first sustain my standard of living, and that's a combination of cash, barterable silver, barterable gold. But then I don't personally own any fiat money products other than some cash. So I don't have stocks or bonds or cryptos or any of that stuff. I don't have that. So I don't need to then properly diversify. I am all in for the rest of what I want to accomplish with the gold in the collectibles, but at different levels. So if I want to pay off, like I intentionally have a mortgage on this property, not a big one, mind you, but I have a mortgage intentionally because I want to execute the same strategy that I'm recommending to you, which is to repay that debt with dollars that have virtually no value. That would be a low quality, remember all the same gold content, so that has nothing to do with it, but a lower quality, higher population coin to pay off that debt. Then what I also want to do is I want to generate income that I cannot outlive and leave those assets and that income to my children as part of the legacy. I'm going to go up in quality simply because the more rare, this is how it works. We go to an auction. There are 10 of these on the table, and there are 10 people at this auction. Wherever the price opens, everybody wants one. That's what they're going to pay. They're going to walk away with it. But now I got this, and there's one. And there's 10 people at that auction, and every single person wants it. Well, whoever's willing to pay the most for it is the one that gets it, but then you still have 9 people that wanted it. So you've got that broader base of demand, and that then pushes the price in terms of this stuff up. Well, when the time is right, part of the strategy is not just what you buy. That's important. You want to make sure that you have the right tool for the job. But it's also critically important when and how you liquidate, when it's time to convert into these income producing assets that you cannot outlive, right? So part of our job on the way out is to find out where you're going to capture the most. And sometimes, there's no fever like gold fever, right? And so sometimes what happens is there are premiums that come up where right now, say building a string or something like that, it's not going to capture any premiums above what you have. But when there's gold fever, history shows that as a real possibility. But you may not have the ability to build a string. What's a string? It's a series of coins with the same date and the same quality or different quality levels so that you kind of create a set. Okay? If that is indeed true, that it does command a premium, we track all of our clients' holdings. So we can marry one with another to capture that premium. If you're going to capture more premium at an auction, that's where we're going to liquidate it. If you're going to capture more of a premium when you sell it back to a wholesaler, that's what we're going to do. So wherever it is that you are going to get the best gains, part of the strategy isn't just buying it, it's also liquidating it. And that's why I'm so excited about these, because this is something that I have wanted to do for years and years and years. The booklet that you get is already color-coded, right? So it is all matching to these. So you're looking at your statement. Okay, you know where you're covered based upon your goals. But then you're looking at this, and you can see there's no sticker on this at all, but there will be based upon what its function is in your portfolio. So excited to get this executed. I can't even begin to tell you, because I want everybody to be prepared for what is happening. There is opportunity here. It's not just crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste. There is always opportunity in crisis. And how about if we have the wealth shift our way for a change? What a concept. How about we have a seat at the table and a say in the next monetary iteration to make it more fair for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren? And we have to do that. We have to. It's our obligation, I believe, anyway. Everybody gets to do what they're comfortable with. But I always ask, and I challenge you to look in the mirror and say, if not me, who? If not now, when? One person cannot do it alone, but together we can. So help us build this channel. Help us build this community. Participate with us. I'll help you understand more and more as I understand more and more, as I'm getting more and more involved in the sound money movement. But what we do at Zang Enterprises is a sound money portfolio, plus we have all the other talent, and you'll see more of this probably on our website, maybe in Facebook. I'm not sure where yet. We're working on it. We're working on it. I appreciate your patience. But you really need all the pieces of the mantra: food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. This is one aspect of the community. It's also why I'm excited to go to Australia. I do believe it's not 100% final yet, but it's almost final, that I'm going to be participating in the Peak Prosperity incentive in September. We'll post. I'll let you know more about that. I'd like to spend more time out there in a meet and greet so that I can get to know the members of my community face to face. So bear with us, we're fledgling, we're pedaling as fast as we can, but frankly, we are all here to be of service to you. And until next we meet, please share, and be safe out there. Bye-bye.